This episode is proudly sponsored by The Helix, a new innovation district located in New Brunswick, New Jersey, the heart of the Northeast Corridor. The Helix provides a critical ecosystem for innovation by offering a range of physical environments, a vibrant community of leading innovators, and a strategic central location on the Northeast Corridor. The Helix will uniquely mix workspaces, classrooms, laboratories, venues, and collaborative environments, creating a dynamic community and setting for innovative minds. Universities, startups, Fortune 500 companies, entrepreneurs, researchers, and many others will all call the Helix home. Thus far, the Helix has assembled a community of innovative private and public organizations, such as Rutgers Health, the New Jersey Innovation Hub, RWJ Barnabas Health, Hackensack Meridian Health, universities from Ireland and Israel, and others. The Helix is where ideas will come to life. To learn more, visit helixnj.com.
NFL Sunday Ticket is now on YouTube and YouTube TV, which means that you can stay close to your team even if you don't live in their town. Like, maybe you're a Raven who married a Seahawk who got a job in the land of the Falcons. With NFL Sunday Ticket, you can watch your team's out-of-market Sunday afternoon games no matter where you live, because you shouldn't have to change teams even if you change towns. NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. Go to youtube.com/presale to get $50 off.
Terms and embargoes apply. Offer ends 9/19. No refund. Subscription auto renews.
From NJ.com and the Star Ledger, welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politi and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start shopping.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Rutgers Rant. Politi here, Fonseca, Lanny, both here as well. Rutgers 36, Temple 7. A game that looked like it wasn't gonna go well for a hot minute. Not exactly a reason to panic, but certainly what you'd like to see from the Scarlet Knights. What they didn't do last year, when Temple cut the score to 13-7, you really saw a response from Rutgers. Resolve, both offensively and defensively, came out, scored the most points as a stat that you had, Fonseca. Most points in a fourth quarter in 40 years. Is that right?
I'll give credit to the Rutgers communication staff who found that. My stat.
You didn't look that up yourself? I'm sorry. I thought you were digging through the archives yourself.
You joke. I do that sometimes, but this was they're very good. They do a great job, and they got this one, which is pretty impressive. I don't know how it's a bit of a hollow stat. It's very one quarter, whatever, but it is impressive. To your point about the resilience, I think everyone in the stadium that was still in the stadium sees that Temple touchdown, and they start to, like you said, to get worried, because it just felt like a classic Rutgers game of you're controlling the entire first half hour, but your defense is doing a great job of keeping Temple out of the end zone, but your offense can't build that lead. Temple cuts it in half, but people didn't really have time to panic, because immediately Kyle Monangai turns into the greatest wrecking ball of all time, just destroying the Northwestern defensive line for 6 straight plays. Bam, 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 hits the end zone. And it seemed like from there, Temple just kind of crumbled. EJ Warner throws 2 picks, and the game was really over. So as quick of a punch, I think you put it this way, Temple threw a punch, Rutgers threw a counter punch, and the game was pretty much over from there.
Yeah. And Pat, I was thinking about this and just what these 2 wins mean in the broader, the view from 30,000 feet. I feel much differently about 2-0 this year than I did last year. Like 2-0 last year, you watch those first 2 games and you're like, well, that ain't going to work in the Big Ten. Like, I don't know. I don't know that this team's going to have this. It's going to have a better record. I think it's going to have a better record. I predicted beforehand. I feel good about that prediction now, but at least you see, all right, that this might work in the Big Ten.
100%. It worked for Minnesota. It worked for Straka last year. Yeah. They're a replica of Minnesota last year. I can't say it enough. What this whole team has become: a great defense and a really good running game, and a quarterback that can just make enough plays and not turn the ball over is exactly what Minnesota was last year. And I think they went 9-4.
Not getting 9-4 yet, but yeah. No, but to your point,
right. To your point, last year, just think they should have lost to Boston College last year. Absolutely. That stunning drive was incredible. And look what's become of Boston College. That's a lost program. And they should have lost to Temple last year if it wasn't for the Shaquan Loyal interception. So exactly. You're right. This 2-0 is definitely different. They've been able to dominate 2 teams that they should have dominated, and they've just looked superior in both games.
All right, let's dive into what specifically is different. And I think the first thing that sticks out for me in this game, Jaquay Jackson. They didn't have that guy a year ago, and it's funny, you're talking to him after the game and just like, all right, well, take me through that play. Is that an instance of you just running as fast as you can? The 61-yard catch. And yeah, absolutely. I just know if I run as fast as I can and get open, that Rutgers has a quarterback and Gavin Wimsatt now who can find him. And that's just stretching the field. We didn't see that against Northwestern. Jackson was hurt in camp, comes out in this game. Now you're starting to see, all right, if they get that kind of guy who can get out there and stretch the defense, I think that's really important. It was interesting in this, like reading Greg Schiano's, what he says after games, the fact he came back to, at the end of his press conference, came back to reference him again to make sure that point get driven home.
Yeah, and we've kind of been saying throughout the offseason that the Rutgers needs Jaquay Jackson to be that guy, that number one receiver they haven't had since Bo Melton, maybe since Leonte Carrou, a guy you can depend on. And exactly to your point, it looked like Gavin just kind of lofted that ball up, and Jaquay Jackson, it landed right in his hands. He and not only that play, that was the big play, obviously, but he had a couple of really big ones. Mm-hmm. He had an 18-yard catch to start that go-ahead drive where Kyle Monangai went for 6 straight plays. He started that drive. He had a diving catch on a great ball to get a first down, I believe, early in the first quarter when Rutgers' offense was really rolling. So yeah, it's good to have that weapon, to have a guy kind of, like you said, a bit of a slow first game. He got hit pretty hard down the middle in what he called his welcome to the Big Ten hit, but he bounced back in this game. And not only is it good to have Gavin Wimsatt show some progress, which I think he has, it's good to know he has a guy that helps him make that progress, a guy he can really depend on. And given the fact that Rutgers did not complete a pass to a tight end all game, that's usually a quarterback security blanket. Gavin doesn't really seem to have that. He puts even more emphasis on the wide receivers to have to step up. And Jackson in this game showed he can be that number one guy.
I was surprised by that. The tight end thing is a good point. I thought this was the kind of game that you might see a Johnny Langan kind of 6 catch thing. We haven't seen that at all. It's interesting. What we did see though, another Kyle Monangai game that just kind of like I think it was 28 carries. Felt like a Ray Rice-esque game where he just started to get going, and the way he was running in the fourth quarter. Pat, have we been overthinking this with the running backs? Have they just got their guy and that's their guy?
Every time I think of Kyle Monangai, I always think he's just overlooked. It's the only thing that comes to mind. Everyone overlooks Kyle Monangai. They've been doing it since he was in high school. I'm guilty of it myself, right? Even when I was on the high school beat, like he played second fiddle to Jalen Berger at Don Bosco Prep. And now at Rutgers, he's in this crowded backfield where it's always going to be some other guy, but it's always Kyle Monangai that rescues this team. And I think we are a little guilty of putting some extra hype on other players when we forget that Kyle Monangai has just been this steady performer. Yeah. Bottom line.
We waited. Was Sam Brown ready? Is Sam Brown ready? When is he going to play? Is he going to play? Yeah, all right. Yeah, he did play. And the game looked good, too. He did play late in that game. If fans had left, they might have missed it. But you're like, oh, that's right. They've got 3 really good running backs because Jashawn Benjamin broke off a nice run in that game as well. Good problem to have. You tried to get Schiano going if this is a tough thing. He's like, no, it's not a tough thing. It's an interesting question in his press conference today. Another good question of the press conference today, just about I thought was a telling answer about the defensive line. How asked Greg Schiano how's he assessed how that unit's playing, and he didn't seem particularly happy. I mean, certainly didn't rip him, but he's like, no, we could play a lot better on defensive line. I think that's. For a team that's only given up 2 touchdowns, one came in the last 19 seconds of the game. The other one came on 4th down after the defense had been on the field for quite a bit. I think it's pretty telling that he expects a higher level from that defense.
Yeah, and it's a great sign because they've really been the backbone of this team's strong start. In fairness, they haven't played any explosive offenses yet, and Virginia Tech is probably not going to be that either, given how bad their offensive line is, how jumbled their quarterback situation is, the fact that their wide receivers are falling like flies, and their best guy just had surgery on his ankle. So I could see why Greg might want to see more dominance. Maybe he wants to see 0 points. I think Aaron Lewis said after the first game that their standard is shutting out every opponent, and I think they have the potential to be that good. If this is not Rutgers defense at its highest gear, I think that's a great sign and kind of shows that maybe Rutgers can make a bowl game this year. Maybe they do have that extra gear. Maybe this strong start to the season is a sign of maybe us underestimating them in the preseason.
Right. And if he's not getting enough from the defensive line, and no one asked him, but I got to feel like he's got to feel good about what he's getting from the secondary. It seems like every game there's a huge play, a couple of more in this game. We didn't even include a play by Max Melton, who, it has just been extraordinary. I mean, Pat, that backside is it's DBU's best in a decade.
Yeah, it really is. I loved his quote about Flip Dixon. Schiano goes after Michael Flip Dixon had just a monster game against Temple. You think about that goal line stand, the plays he made. And then Schiano after the game, I think his quote was something along the lines is he's a grown man out there. Like when he hits you, he hits you. And right. I'm like, yeah, that'll hold up. That'll hold up. Michael Flip Dixon has been just a huge addition to the secondary, a tremendous player. Shaquan Loyal has been terrific. The safeties have been great. Longer Beam has 2 picks. And you thought this would, if the defense had any question marks coming into the season, it was in the secondary where they lost Avery Young and Christian Izzian, who's going to replace these guys through 2 games. I mean, they're really living up to the hype.
To go on that, I mean, they had a big challenge this week with EJ Warner, who's a guy who I think he's the second fastest guy to pass the ball after the snap, 2.2 seconds. And they lived up to it by deflecting 13 of his passes. The defensive line had some of that. Deion Jennings had a huge game there, Wesley Bailey, but it seems like everybody in the backfield, Michael Flip Dixon had a great one too. So they had a big challenge this week and they lived up to it. So that's also another encouraging sign. 13
pass breakups. We got to get some advanced statistics on that because that seems like an unholy number.
That is wild. It really is. Yeah. And it just, again, Warner's not the tallest quarterback in the world, so that contributes to it a lot, but just getting into the passing lanes and knocking passes down. And it's a good sign. All right. A lot of good signs. We're going to do true and false here. But first, before we do, we're going to take a quick break. And these are, if you're listening to the podcast, these are new commercials, by the way. I went to a recording studio, guys. I went to a recording studio that once recorded stuff from Beyonce to record these. So it's me, Bay, all the true pioneers and legends of recording.
That's as big as it gets. That's as big as it gets.
You're not buying the sorry. That's fair. Okay. All right. Take a quick break. We'll be back with true and false in a minute. The Helix is coming. That's right. Ground is broken, foundations are being laid, and the plans are being realized. For those that have not yet heard, the Helix is a new innovation district in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Smack dab in the middle of the Northeast Corridor, the Helix is a place for innovators to gather and innovation to take action. It offers a range of physical environments, a vibrant innovation community, and a strategic central location in close proximity to New York, Philly, Boston, and D.C. The Helix will uniquely mix workspaces, classrooms, laboratories, venues, and collaborative environments, creating a dynamic community and setting for innovative minds. Universities, startups, Fortune 500 companies, entrepreneurs, researchers, and many others are already signing up to call the Helix home. Thus far, the Helix has assembled a community of innovative private and public organizations such as Rutgers Health, the New Jersey Innovation Hub, RWJ Barnabas Health, Hackensack Meridian Health, universities from Ireland and Israel, and others. The Helix is coming. Visit helixnj.com to learn more. All right, let's do some true or false. I got a bunch of topics here. We got a lot to talk about on the team and in the Big Ten, and of course, some fan stuff as well. So let's hit it. True or false? Tyler Needham's injury is a major problem. Right guard went down in that game. Pat, true or false?
True. Right tackle.
Right tackle. I'm sorry, right tackle.
Big injury.
Big injury. Brian, true or false?
True.
Absolutely true. Yeah. And it's not just because I watched the Giants right side of their offensive line, which is a disaster last night. It is. It's a big problem. True or false? The lack of a pass rush is a major problem. Pat, are you worried about the lack of a pass rush right now?
No, they're doing a great job getting in the passing lanes, applying pressure. I think it's been really good to this point. False.
Brian, you agree?
False. I think they had 5 sacks the first game against Northwestern, and there wasn't really much time to sack EJ Warner yesterday, but they hit him a lot. So I'll say false.
False. Okay, I agree too. False. Yeah, I think that's not on the list yet. How about long snapping? Long snapping is a major problem. I'm looking for major problems. I'm trying to get some conversation here, people. Pat, are we worried about snapping?
Jay Patel just got the Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Week, connected on a 51-yard field goal. I know there was a bad snap on that field goal, but no, false. Not a concern.
Brian, false?
I'll go false for now, but like Pat said, Jay made that field goal in spite of a pretty rough snap. Flynn Appleby did a great job with the hold. So for now, I'll say false, but I could definitely see at some point in the near future a bad snap causing a bad play and Greg Schiano's head exploding because of it. When you're using two different long snappers, I mean, when's the last time you've seen that? They're using a short long snapper and a long snapper.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That's really
short, long snapping. Yeah, holding is not a problem. It's doing a great job. Special teams overall is not. I mean, you have every kickoff sails through the end zone. I mean, a lot of good things happen on special teams for this team. Have they had? When was the last time they must have had a special teams player of the year? A couple seasons ago, right? In the Big Ten.
I don't think any of them were ever special teams player of the week themselves. Adam Korsak was co-special teams player of the week twice in 2021, and Aaron Cruikshank was, I believe, also a co.
Just a co for Cruikshank? Really? Wow.
I'm fairly certain, but I do know that Adam Korsak's, both of his were co. And when he had that epic game against Iowa, he wasn't even named the Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Week at all. So finally, the Big Ten office has made amends to Rutgers and given them their just desserts. They're due with Jay Patel getting the award.
That's good stuff. I love Jay Patel's on Twitter trying to sell jerseys. Good for you, Jay. I love it. All right. True or false? Kyle Monangai should be the featured back of this offense until proven otherwise. Pat, you going to give the workhorse 30 carries against Virginia Tech?
Like you said, I tried to bait Schiano by asking him if it was a curse or blessing, and he just epic fail on my part. But true, Kyle Monangai really deserves it.
Yep.
He's earned it.
You're feeding the man, Brian. Are you still thinking Sam Brown needs to get out there more?
So if Sam Brown is still working his way back against Virginia Tech, I will say true. Kyle Monangai still should be the feature back. If Sam Brown is 100%, I say you let him loose and make him the feature back. So I guess my answer is it depends on how Sam Brown is doing.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think this might be the week because we just know Sam again. And that's great. Monangai is playing. Sam Brown is a special talent. So I'm going to agree with you, Brian, on that one. I'll say false. All right. True or false? 8 carries is not enough for Gavin Wimsatt. We've seen him run the ball. He runs the ball really well. Pat, what do you think about that?
8 carries is enough. False.
You think it's enough? False. Brian?
I agree with Pat. I thought one weird play calling from Straka was after, I believe it was Max Melton's interception, right after Rutgers scored the Monangai touchdown. They get the ball in the red zone, and instead of handing it off to a running back, they run 2 straight runs for Wimsatt and end up getting stuffed and kicking a field goal.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was strange. I think there's a place for Gavin Wimsatt runs. I think he showed that when he had that big run down the middle on a 17-yarder on a keeper. Yep. I just think you have to be selective with that, and he's not a guy that you can just say, here, pick up 5 yards. It has to be kind of... And another thing about Gavin running, while we're on the topic, he doesn't slide. He dives head first. And I asked him about it. He said it's on purpose.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that's not what you're supposed to do, and I'm pretty sure you could probably
Daniel Jones did the same thing last night too, so I don't know. I mean, with the Giants, maybe you're right. Maybe it's just the way it is now.
Maybe there's an analytical edge here that I'm not aware of, but I saw it and I was concerned for him.
I do love the fact, and this is getting in the weeds a bit, but he hands the ball off a couple of times. He really late handoff to Monangai. Which is just a great read to spring him on that big drive. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's when it was. When I noticed it the first time, I'm like, he is waiting to give the ball on some of those reads and doing a great job running the offense that way. So, but I mean, when he broke off for that 17-yard run, this is what maybe put this on the list. And true or false, it's just like, holy, that kid that he does have another gear. I mean, he hit that hole pretty fast. So I'm going to say not enough carries. True. All right. True or false? The Mel Tucker saga at Michigan State is good news for Rutgers. I mean, it's not good news for society. Is it good news for Rutgers, Pat? True or false?
Anytime a program goes into disarray that Rutgers is going to play, it's good news. But you're right. It's terrible for society. It's an ugly story. Ugly.
Right. Brian, true or false?
Mel Tucker is a disgusting human being. Just to start off, I agree with Pat. I know some people are saying that Mel Tucker is a bad coach, so him no longer being there at Michigan State actually helps them. I think the fact that a team is going to have their head coach and is going to be in the middle of a national scandal, as we saw with Northwestern, is not very conducive to good football. So I will say Mel Tucker not being around or whatever's happening in Michigan State is good for Rutgers. So true, okay. I think.
What about Coach Prime? When you get Coach Prime in East Lansing, does that change your mind?
I love Coach Prime so much. I know he's very...
They're not good. Michigan State. If Michigan State makes a better hire, this doesn't change your mind if he gets fired.
Well, I don't know if you watch Mr. Paul Feinbaum down in SEC country, but he's talking about replacing Nick Saban with Deion Sanders.
Wow,
So, I think the ship has sailed in East Lansing for Deion Sanders.
He's already gone. He's already too good. It's going to be, yeah. Okay. You already hammered it, Brian, but the idea that you could sexually harass the sexual harassment expert at a university that had the biggest sexual assault scandal in college sports history is, I mean, it is sort of mind blowing. It really is. Like that's when that story moved. It moved late. I was up writing my Rutgers column like 1:30 in the morning when I saw that story. And I was just like, he is toast. It's unbelievable. So yikes. All right. Two more we got here. True or false? The empty stadium in the second half was understandable. After all, it had rained hard only 6 short hours earlier. True or false? How do we feel about the crowd? True or false? Totally understandable. I'm ever to get up to leave in a 13-7 game, right?
Steve-O.
Come on.
No,
this was coming.
False. The student section deserves props for what they did in that game, but it was a weak crowd, I thought.
Brian, you blame the crowd, or you're just going to leave me on that island, which is fine.
Well, I agree with Pat that the student section emptying out after halftime is an issue. I know it's a late night game and everyone wants to get to Queens, but when the game is 13-7, even if it's kind of a snoozer, you got to stick around to see the end of it, right? And then, I know it rained. I know the seats were probably wet. The upper deck was a bit light.
Yeah, I've noticed. I've got no problem with the student section. I will say that it's telling. This is so 2 press conferences in a row. And again, reading part of my job here as a Shianoologist is reading what the coach says and the fact he went out of his way to praise the student section on Saturday night and then came back today praising the student section. He's not praising the rest of you, is what I'm trying to say. Like, I think there's that sense that crowd was soft. And I get it rained, but 2 weeks ago it was too hot. And there's always something. It's hard getting to games. It's late. It's there's always something. So that was my one analysis. And we had some texters bring it up and we're like, what's the deal from people? So interesting.
In their defense, you were complaining about this in the press box too. These games are too damn long.
God,
I understand that traveling late night on a Saturday can be annoying. You're going to catch traffic in the lots. I empathize with fans somewhat. So I'm trying to, I know some people might be annoyed with this segment from us. I'm trying to give people some grace here. If these TV executives could just shorten the games by half an hour and make maybe, I don't know, $50 million less a year, it would save everybody's time and it would be much appreciated.
It is something. I thought they were supposed to be like, I thought that getting that change in that one rule would make the games a little shorter, but if it does not show. I guess they added on the back end to pay the bills for adding Oregon and Washington. I have no idea, but the game is just, you're right, it's just too long, man. Gosh, I did love. You mentioned the parking lots. I love Mike Teals had a great tweet. He's like, getting out of the Scarlet lot after the game is more entertaining sometimes than the game itself. It is an adventure out there. I'll give you that one. So that's fair. All right. Do we have to talk about any of these? We kind of talked about them as we were doing it, right? Any other topic? Just go back to Tyler Needham really quick. What are the options there on the right side of the line if he can't go for the rest of the season?
Well, Shiano did say today that it was not. He would have told us if it was season ending.
Yeah, but he's not playing anytime soon.
No, but it is not season ending, which is right. The good news, I guess. But Kamar Missouri was his replacement. Mm-hmm. And Shiano was not committal to saying that, Kamar is going to be the guy moving forward. They were going to evaluate the situation. So, yeah, we'll see if it's Missouri or if it's someone else. I don't know who would be the next tackle up. I know Taj White's played on the left side.
That would be my suggestion, flipping Taj White from right to right tackle. Mm-hmm. I don't think you could flip Holland Pierce because you need him desperately at left tackle.
No, absolutely.
I agree with that. I think it's either Kamar or Taj.
All right. Good job, guys. Excellent. True or false? Let's do some questions from our text service. We've got a big text service announcement coming soon. I'm going to tease that. Can't say what it is yet, but stay tuned on the texting service. We're going to have something very cool coming at you. But first, your questions. And we had some good big picture questions. This one is from JP, good friend of the pod, who I'm seeing a lot more than I see my family right now because he's at the Giants and Jets games. I'll see you soon, JP. Is it just me, or do you get the feeling the schedule is setting up nicely in part on the turmoil of other teams? Northwestern's mess, Iowa and Brian Ferentz not to be able to score. Now Michigan State, add that to Wisconsin appearing to be down. Could the stars be aligning for this team? I'm personally feeling bullish for a defining win where I otherwise didn't 2 weeks ago. It's interesting. I mean, this has happened in Rutgers history. The stars have aligned a couple of times early in the year for a good series. Obviously, 2006, you looked at that after a couple games and you're like, you know what? This team could be 8-0 playing Louisville. I don't know that I'm there yet with this schedule because in 2 weeks we got Michigan at the Big House. That's going to kind of put a damper on things. But I don't know. Do you guys agree? Do you guys agree that you're feeling something with the early part of the schedule, or it might be a situation where they get the 6 wins even before we start worrying about the hard part of the schedule?
I do. I think there's a lot of things happening that JP mentioned. Wisconsin lost to Wazoo and didn't look very impressive doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a road win that probably seemed unlikely in the preseason. That looks winnable now. Iowa keeps being Iowa. No matter how many clauses they put in Brian Ferentz's contract, they're still going to score 20 points and hold on for dear life to win games. And whenever that happens, you're always going to be in the margin of being able to come back. They almost blew a 17-0 lead to Iowa State. So I think that's certainly a winnable game. And
yeah, because Rutgers doesn't do that at all. No.
Right.
It's the most 9-6 game of all time written all over it. And look, the big one I'm pointing to, people are going to think I'm crazy. I've teased this on the last pod, I think. Ohio State, they barely beat Indiana.
Yeah.
They struggled against Ohio State. Barely in their lofty standards, they don't look that great. Rutgers could be 5-3 or 6-2 when Ohio State rolls into SHI Stadium. SHI Stadium, by the way, not SHI. SHI. My apologies. It's pronounced SHI. I've been saying it wrong this whole time. Anyway, Rutgers could be 6-2 when Ohio State comes to Piscataway. That place could be juiced up. Rutgers has not had a signature win in the Big Ten of that magnitude. Hasn't really come close, frankly. I don't know. I'm not calling the upset. If Rutgers is within 21 points on the spread, I would hammer Rutgers. Although I have people destroying me for saying you should hammer Northwestern when they lost by big to UTEP.
Yeah.
Next time I will tell you my picks after the games happen. That way I will be 100% correct. Like these bozos in my Twitter mentions. Anyway.
Wow.
And anyway.
Wow. A lot going on there, Pat. A lot going on there.
Yeah.
It was like we didn't even
this guy
mention like soccer in there. He still went nuts.
I just want to bring it up that this guy predicted 5-7 2 weeks ago, and now through 2 weeks,
now we got him 6-2
beating Ohio State.
Not just 6-2, but beating Ohio State. Yeah, that's pretty.
I didn't say they're going to beat Ohio State. I'm just saying it was literally impossible the first 9 times. This time, I think I'd give Rutgers, as we stand today, a 5 to 10% chance, which is monumentally more than they've ever had. I would say
probably should be Virginia Tech first. Yeah, I'm not quite there yet. But to your point, JP, and I got a couple of people pointed out, that made the point that it is certainly looking a little different than it did, when Labor Day weekend started. Yeah,
agree.
Pat?
Absolutely agree. Yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah.
All right. Some more questions. Let's dive into the offense. We got a bunch. Oh my God, we got like 53 questions on offense. A lot of people just curious what this offense is going to look like. Here's Brian H. from Georgia. Assuming we see the full playbook against Virginia Tech, and I've got to imagine there's more RPI and more shots to tight ends, what do you think we're going to see? Also, I miss seeing well-timed deep shots to wide receivers. He's happy about that. I think everyone who likes football likes a well-timed shot to wide receivers. I don't know. It's funny. Like I had a preconceived notion of what it was going to be. It's not that. We saw what it was against, Northwestern and the personnel chain like Ian Strong. I thought, there's a guy. They've discovered this guy's a really good true freshman receiver. He didn't catch a pass against Temple. I mean, Pat, with Johnny Langan, we brought him to media day. I thought he was going to be he didn't. They not throw him to the tight ends. I don't know. Is this just it, or is there something that we still haven't seen yet?
Well, you just got to look at what's been consistent. And it's a big picture theme of we're just going to run the ball until they can stop it and make these easy throws, maybe a well-timed shot every now and then when the defense is caught off guard. I think the offense has been pretty predictable. If, like I said a million times, if you watch Minnesota from last year, yeah, I think it's still just going to be one of those grinded out type games against Virginia Tech, and the offense is going to be ball controlling and playing complementary football to the defense.
All right. We had some concerns about the offense. Robert B., do you believe Kirk Sherrock intentionally closed the playbook until the Temple touchdown in the fourth quarter and then reopen it when the game was in jeopardy. After Temple scored, it seemed like the pace picked up and kickstarted the offense. Is that just the coaching staff being cagey, or did they figure something out? I think Greg Schiano said it after the game about the coaching staff chasing the game, Brian. It was like an interesting comment just about what happened there in the third quarter where, it seemed like they went into a shell a bit. Do you agree with that analysis, or is there something else there? Or maybe this offense is just not, that they're still a work in progress. That's part of it as well.
Well, I did see Greg say that he told Gavin to kind of be a bit conservative, don't take many risks coming out of halftime. They have a lead. Mm-hmm. And this has been a theme for the first two games where they kind of build this lead and they seem to kind of be content to run out the clock and not risk anything and kind of just let the seconds tick by. Schiano hinted after the Northwestern game as well that they've been kind of holding some things back in the playbook, which you got to hope so, because to everyone's point, if this is it, I just don't know how far I can take them. But I think I'm not sure if it's by design. I'm not sure if it's the offense just not having enough. I'm not sure what it is, but I would agree with the assessment that the two games after they build the lead, there's been a bit of a lull that for whatever reason, I don't think they changed anything on the game-winning drive on the Monangai drive, because it seemed like they just handed the ball off to Monangai. He ran between the tackles and they did it again. Maybe the pace was a little bit quicker. It did feel that way when I watched it back, but I don't think there was any revolutionary thing there. They just kind of, I don't know. I think it's too simplistic to say they woke up, but they really just kind of ran it down Temple's throats.
I think what you also saw was that what happened to Rutgers last year at the end of games where the defense imploded because they didn't have enough depth is what happened to Temple.
Yeah, good point.
Doesn't have the depth to hang around for 4 quarters, and they just fell apart.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. All right, some more questions. Steve F. from Northern Virginia. I'd love to hear your thoughts, analysis on the offensive line's performance. Seems like most of the game as we ran between tackles, we gained like 2.9 yards per carry. Then in the fourth quarter, you could drive a truck through some of those holes. What was the difference? Do we adjust blocking teams? Personnel change? Do we just wear them down? Great questions. Again, we talked about it last week. The bar was on the ground for the offensive line, folks, and I think it has played really well, at least by what the expectations were. I think it's been pretty good. Overall, again, that's not gonna, when you bring in a defensive line like Michigan, it's gonna be tough. But run blocking, especially, Pat, and you wrote, you were the one who talked about it last week. It looks good.
Yeah, I said it passed the eye test certainly in short yardage situations. So you saw that against Northwestern when they had to get a couple yards, they got it. And then I was surprised to see the Pro Football Focus grades that against Northwestern, Rutgers had its highest grade in pass protection that it's had in 2 years. And then this past week also graded out pretty well in both categories. So I think the offensive line has been pretty good. I wasn't as down on the offensive line as maybe others were this coming into camp or coming out of camp. I kind of saw it as you had some pieces back and some depth. Rutgers is playing 10 guys up front. That's crazy. Especially when Schiano says, I want to stick with 5 and get the 6th and 7th guy in line. They're rotating a lot. Yeah. And I'm curious if that's helping keep these guys fresh so that in the fourth quarter they're wearing down other teams, or whether they're still trying to figure out who those 6th, 7th, and 8th guy is in the rotation. Yeah,
great point. And I think Pat Flaherty made a big impact. Certainly, it's a guy with his resume. But Brian, I don't know. It's still, for me, it's still the thing that is holding me back. It's still the thing holding me back from saying, all right, this season this is going to be really good. Is that line play? I got to see it against a better opponent, I guess.
Yeah, I don't disagree. The pass pro has been really good. They've only given up 1 sack in 2 games. That's a pretty good stat. So they can't really do much better there. I guess they can be more dominant up front, but they were when it mattered in the fourth quarter. But to your point, that's probably true of most things with Rutgers, with Gavin, with the receivers, with the offensive line, with the defense. They did it against Temple and Northwestern. Can they do it against the Michigans, the Ohio States of the world? So I don't know if we'll see it again. I don't think we'll see it against Virginia Tech, maybe offensively, because Virginia Tech's line is supposed to be good. But I just, their offense is brutal. So I don't know. I think we'll have to wait for Michigan to see that.
All right. Defense question. This is a little too in the, I don't know if you guys can be able to answer this. I can't answer it. So maybe you can answer it. This is a little too in the weeds, but what's the deal with the RU D lineman using a 4-point stance as opposed to the more typical 3-point you see in the NFL? They look hindered coming off the ball. Our friend Kevin Fine signed it Richard Kent's blazer, which is just a hilarious inside joke that maybe 20 people will get on this planet. I was one of them. So thank you. 4-point stance versus 3-point stance, Pat. You got any thoughts on this?
this guy's got to be a high school football coach or something. I mean, this is next level insider question right here.
You got it. If we got it, we don't have it. I don't know.
Point stance. I can't answer this one.
Right? No.
I think he's got to send his question to the super premium level of our text service where we answer actual coaches' questions. So this is not fit for the Rutgers rant.
We're going to have to ask that question in person, perhaps wearing a blazer. All right. We have some attendance / other questions from a young fan. The constant and overwhelming scoreboard noises are smothering the organic crowd noise. On defense, especially third downs, the crowd does not cheer until the scoreboard stops blaring. Can anyone with the larger audience get through to them to relax on the scoreboard? I mean, I got to tell you, like we're in the press box. I don't hear it. We don't hear it. But as I was walking down after the game, we're walking down, the side in front of that scoreboard, and I thought to myself, "Holy cow, that is loud!" They're playing as Fonseca called it, another game show theme. It was really the Saturday Night Live theme that was playing, but Fonseca mistaken it for a game show theme hilariously, which is something else we'll bring up on Friday. But yeah, I mean, it is loud, right? I mean, Brian, you agree, or am I just being an old person again?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts here. I agree with there's been a lot of fan complaints. If you read the message boards about this, about the horn being very excessive, just 10 seconds too long, going until literally before the opposing team snaps the ball. The guy constantly saying to make some noise. I mean, it's not working, man. If you have to say make some noise before every snap, they're not making noise. I think part of it is to drown out on third downs, especially when the student section likes to say their favorite 3-word phrase that begins with an F and it involves another Big Ten team from Pennsylvania. And I think they want to do their best to drown that out for TV. The horn is just ridiculous. I hear it in the press box. It's horrible. It's horrible. I don't think it adds anything. And if you let me get onto my soapbox, this is where I'm going to put in the soccer chants.
Here we go.
This doesn't happen in Europe and in South America, where fans create the energy and the atmosphere themselves with chants and all that stuff. So,
wait a minute. Interrupting. What about the Vuvuzela?
Steve, that was 13 years ago in South Africa for 1 month. Okay, talk to me about Buenos Aires. Talk to me about Lisbon, about London, about Manchester.
Talk to him about it, Steve.
About Madrid, Barcelona.
Mistakes were made. This was a mistake.
Talk to me about actual soccer crowds. I think that's the one major issue I have with American sports culture. But I digress. I think personally, blaring a horn that you could hear on the other side of the state for 30 seconds is not the solution.
And it's interesting, Pat, because I would say for the most part, and we talked about this I don't want to steal your thunder, a cool story that Pat's got coming soon. The production quality at games has become far more professional than it was, I mean, even 5 years ago, but certainly 10, 15 years ago when I first started going to those games, it felt closer to a big high school atmosphere than a NFL atmosphere. Now it is far closer to an NFL atmosphere. I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm just telling you, like from a consumer standpoint, you're no longer going to, the football game is for a lot of people not the center of attraction, which is interesting. It never had been that way. Now you can you bring your kids over there, get their faces painted, ride a pony, pet a llama. I don't know if there's a llama there or not, but you know what I'm talking about. You go into the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Inside scoop, little article coming out on Little Jovi is what Steve is trying to plug there. It should be out, I think around the same time as this pod. So, but I wrote in there that
not so little. He's all grown up. Little Jovi.
All grown up now. He's all grown up now. And the little chunk of that article is that maybe Little Jovi became such a hit because it was so organic. They just put the camera on this little kid in the crowd, and it was such a hit because he was cute and it was fun and it was great. Now everything, they got the drone show and put on your cell phone camera lights, and we have flashing black and red lights, and everything's a spectacle.
Every minute is choreographed.
Like you said, I don't know if that's good or bad.
It just is. Yeah. That's very interesting, but
very professional. Yeah. Very professional.
It's different.
Just one point. I don't know if you guys watched the USC Stanford game this weekend. One team got flagged. The home team got flagged because the music kept playing when the opposing team snapped the ball. I'm just saying, if Rutgers doesn't calm down with that horn, they're going to get penalized.
Okay. That'd be something. All right. Here's a non-game but Rutgers football related question. Is Kyle Flood the best offensive coordinator in the country now sounds like a head coaching job in his future. I mean, this is again, you guys just know what buttons to push on me. I love you for it, but you have to say what happened here. What could have possibly happened? The man was in Alabama. They were the best program in the country. Now he's in Texas and they're the best program in the country. That can't be a coincidence, can it?
This is a fact. Rutgers' only championship in the Big East came with Kyle Flood at the helm.
That is a fact. It might have been, for those of us who were there, we might have some other thoughts on how that happened, but absolutely, that is a fact. Yeah. Is he calling the plays for Texas? No, he's not calling the plays, right?
I would think Sarkisian is still
he's still
their offense.
Yeah, I think that's pretty obvious. So yeah, hey, I don't know. He might. I wouldn't, crazier things have happened. There's been enough distance from how it ended with Kyle Flood that he might be able to point to some things that happened on his resume when he's talking about other jobs. I don't know. I really don't. That's sort of fascinating though. So other questions, David Millman from Springfield. What do you guys think accounts for the dramatic decrease in penalties and what now seems like a significantly more disciplined team? Talked about a little bit last week. I think weaker competition. I think it's a small sample size still. Better coaching. Maybe the offense is just a lot of those personnel or, getting the plays in late stuff. That's not happening. A lot of the false starts are not happening. There might just be that that you have a better offensive coordinator. Could it be that simple?
And consistency at quarterback. Remember last year, how many?
True.
We had 3 different quarterbacks playing and there was no consistency. Yeah. I think what Shiraka did was simplify everything and bring like just a level of consistency that has changed things offensively. But I think also winning breeds this as well. Like when things are going well, everything goes well, or when things are going poorly, everything's going poorly. So a little bit of both there for me.
Here's one from Mike. I think Rutgers underutilizes the victory statue in front of the stadium. Interesting. It is, I think, the second best statue in the Big Ten, and Ron Garutti donated that to Rutgers, and it is a really nice thing out there. Good meeting point for people. You see people taking photos, but you're right. They don't use it in any meaningful way. For my favorite statue that I've noticed, Sparty in East Lansing is pretty imposing when you see it. Why don't they use the victory statue more, Pat?
Hey, sounds like a column. I don't know.
Hot take.
I guess because it's so close to the Scarlet Walk, it would be my first guess. Is like everyone, the other statue has become a part of this long running tradition that it just has its place in Rutgers football lore. That you can't just change the Scarlet Walk. But I think, I agree with you. It's an awesome statue and it does deserve better play.
All right. Those are all the questions I have got. Thank you if we missed any, we'll do our best to reply to you in the feed. Thank you for your questions. Fellas, what else do we got? Anything? Soccer back in the winning ways? No, Dylan Harper. This is the latest we've gone on the podcast in about 6 months. Mentioning the name Dylan Harper. No news there. There was an
update this morning from Trudy Johansson, your favorite.
Oh no, there wasn't. I didn't follow. I forgot to follow Trilly. That's what's wrong. What happened? Give me the update. I'm so excited.
So 6 hours ago, Trilly Donovan dropped a report on recruiting around the country this weekend. It was a busy time. The gist of it is Dylan Harper is expected to still take a visit to Auburn soon, perhaps in the next week or two. Okay. And he is in the works to set an official visit to Rutgers in October, which the date that makes sense is October 14th, that weekend of homecoming. They play Michigan State. That is what a source told Trilly. That's the most likely date. And Kansas, now that one of their top targets, Joel Bethea, is visiting Miami and might slip out of their grasp, they could have a renewed sense of urgency. That's his quote, to attack Dylan Harper as well. And just a reminder, Dylan Harper did go to Rutgers' first game against Northwestern, but that was an unofficial visit, just a day trip with his brother. He still has an official visit for his senior year to Rutgers if he wants to take it. And it sounds like...
What do you do? The kid has been on campus 400 times. How do you do an official visit for Dylan Harper? He could give you a tour of campus at this point. That is really a wonderful question. I would love to know. What in the world do they let him drive like a campus bus? I mean, what can you do? I mean, he's been to Rex. His brother played 4 years in the building. I mean, that is fascinating.
Maybe it's part of like an official visitors weekend. I don't know. For football does that. They have the retreat down the shore, right, where they invite all the families, and maybe it's something like that. That's the only legitimate answer I could give you.
Now, did Ace Bailey commit on an official visit, Brian? Refresh my memory. Or was that just he was in the building? And
I am 99% sure it was an unofficial visit.
It was an unofficial visit. So official, unofficial. That's wild. Okay. Well, they can pay his way down here, which is good. They can pay for his turnpike toll to get to Piscataway. Maybe that's what it is. I have no idea. It's
$10 each way. That's not cheap.
$10 each way. All right. So there's your Dylan Harper update. Field hockey 6-0. Wow. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. Big fight in the Lanny household because my wife is a Princeton field hockey alum. Rutgers beat Princeton 2-1 in overtime. So I had a little rivalry there, shoved it in my wife's face,
Pat, your wife is not just a Princeton field hockey. She's Princeton field hockey royalty. Am I correct in that?
4-time Ivy League champ.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just not. Well, just in case she listens, unlike anyone related to me, and listens to your work. Come on. That is. Let's say what she is here. So that was a good win. Obviously 6-0. Are they the best team on best team on campus right now?
For sure.
I would say so. Volleyball 7-1.
Really?
That's probably not going to last long when they start Big Ten play here soon, but pretty good non-conference slate for them. Men's soccer, bit of a rough. This got buried because it happened during the football game. Bit of a rough trip to LA, and they lost 4-0 to UCLA. Not ideal. Women's soccer won though. I'm fairly certain.
They did beat UMass 1-0. This would be interesting. Do you know if does the Nebraska volleyball team come to Rutgers? Because that'd be fun. Like they had 93,000 people at a game out there. It'd be great for them to come to Rutgers and like ask them, "Hey, what do you think about the atmosphere here?"
Luckily, they're playing at Jersey Mike's Arena and not college.
No, they stopped playing the college gym.
Now that would be that's probably smaller than their rec center over in Lincoln. So
I forgot that they switched sites. Oh well, that would have been good a couple of years ago.
A November 5th date at Jersey Mike's Arena. November 5th, a red out. Rutgers, Nebraska.
There you go. There it is.
You'll see Steve Politi on press row.
That would be something. Maybe I'll go in the crowd. If you haven't, if you haven't been to a college volleyball game, it is legitimately a lot of fun. It's just a fun sport. Absolutely. Can see why 92,000 people in Lincoln, Nebraska went to it in the stadium to watch. Although I can't imagine it would be easy to see from the upper deck, but I'm sure it was a cool scene. Women's hoops bringing in the big time recruits. I'm reading your notes now, Brian, since you pointed this out to me that you added to our script. What's that all about?
So Michaela Blakes, I really hope I didn't just botch her name, but she is a 5-star guard, top 10 player in the 2024 class, plays at Rutgers Prep right down the road at Somerset. Mm-hmm. She was on a visit, and a 4-star guard, Devin Quigley, I believe her name is, plays at Manchester Township, where Destiny Adams, who transferred into the program this offseason, she also played. Anyway, she was also on a visit, and they had a commit in the 24 class as well, whose name I don't remember. So big, much like Dylan Harper was a big splash for the men's basketball team at the season opener. These two prospects were big splashes for Coquise Washington's team this weekend. And Coquise Washington had her chance to conduct the band. I don't know if you guys saw this. She was conducting the marching band. So she's always good for a fun time at these events. She always seems to not take herself very seriously and kind of willfully involve herself in these fun little activities. So that was Lay's example.
Yeah, Coquise and then her staff really work and use the football thing to advantage and ask, like, they're not afraid. And this is a good sign for that program. They're not afraid to bring recruits to meet Greg Schiano or to ask Greg Schiano for help and the entire staff for help. So clearly it's working. So good for them. All right. So that's all the notes we got. Any final thoughts? Or are we going to sign off? Well, as always, if you haven't been paying attention, we'll do the picks for a podcast later in the week. We'll play the alumni game and try again to stump Brian. People are really taking a lot of interest in this. Some, I would say, not a good interest in it, but some who are really obsessed with the fact that I'm picking the wrong alumni. So if you have alumni suggestions for Virginia Tech, please shoot me an email, because again, the list is not good. So we'll play that on Friday and do our picks.
Do not text us, because then I will see it. Email Politi. And if you have any suggestions for the Zoomer segment of Boomer Zoomer, either DM or email Pat and I, and we will decipher what we will tell Steve on Friday.
No cap. It's a lot of fun. All right, let's sign off there, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll be back later in the week to pick Virginia Tech.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, Sign up at NJ.com/insider.